Hi, I'm Phil Ramsey, author of The Dark Jungle. This is a story that's part of the Billibonk and Frankl series of books designed to help children learn about systems thinking. Understanding how complex systems work can help people make insightful decisions, and I hope the books can help your child when it comes to understand some of the systems around them. Along with the books, we've put together these videos for parents. I wanted to share some of the thinking behind the stories. I hope that can help you with the conversations you might have with your child about the stories and what happens in them. By the way, with this video, I'm going to assume that you've read The Dark Jungle. And I'll use some causal loop diagrams to chart some of the dynamics in the story. In The Dark Jungle, Billibonk, Frankl and Tori are trying to work out why the dense jungle is much darker than usual. It turns out something's going on with the chimpanzees. The chimpanzees normally live together in a large troop, but the chimp community has broken down and they're living apart. They're living in smaller groups, and that affects what happens to the trees, how much light gets into the jungle, and what plants are able to grow. Now, there's quite a contrast between the chimp community, which is falling apart, causing bigger and bigger problems for the jungle, and the elephant and mice communities, which don't have the same problems. Why is there a difference? We explore that. And of course, in the story, what has to happen to bring the chimp community back together? This is a reinforcing loop that shows how a community can grow stronger. Let's say the elephants are quite a strong community. They like each other. They spend time together. Elephants think of themselves as belonging to their herd. It's part of who they are. Now, because of that, an elephant like Billibonk feels personally engaged with the community. He wants to do things that the other elephants do. And community strength leads to engagement. Then notice what that leads to. The more engagement, the more shared activity there is. Elephants do more things together. And that means they have more positive experiences together. When Billibonk thinks of the elephant herd, he'll remember lots of good times they've spent together, and he'll naturally have a lot of warm feelings and good memories. When elephants in the herd are sharing positive experiences, the strength of the community increases some more, and there's more engagement, more shared activity, and so on. Now, while that sounds great, things can quickly get more complex. Let's add a balancing loop that might limit the growth of the reinforcing cycle. Here's one thing that can happen. When there's a lot of shared activity, there's plenty of opportunity for everyone in the community to have positive experiences. But other things can happen as well. The more activity, the more complex life gets. Maybe in the elephant herd there are 3 different activities all happening at the same time. Billibonk wants to do them all, but he has to choose. Maybe one elephant friend gets offended that Billibonk is spending so much time with others. Maybe some of the activities aren't really a good idea in the first place. And an elephant might end up getting hurt. So in a strong community, the more activity that happens, the more chance there is that someone will act thoughtlessly, someone will get hurt, there will be more and more negative experiences as well. And these reduce the strength of the community. This was happening with the chimp community. Benny and Gregor, they were doing things together. It was fun for them to, for instance, throw fruit at Ali and others. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say they were being thoughtless rather than being evil. Whatever their motive though, what they were doing meant that there were lots of negative experiences for other chimps, and that had weakened the chimp community. So in any community where there's a lot going on, lots of shared activity, complex relationships, well, people in the community will be having a mix of positive and negative experiences. What communities is your child involved in? What's the mix of experiences like for him or for her? That might be an interesting conversation to have. But let's think about the contrast in the story. Elephants and mice communities don't seem to have the same problems as the chimps. Of course, they have had some problems in earlier books, but they've worked through them, and part of that involves the role of older ones in their community. Bartholomew, for instance, he's actively involved in making sure the mouse community runs well, and Hanifa does the same in the elephant community. Did you notice in the story how they make an effort to teach others, either directly or indirectly? We can add another loop to our diagram to show what they do. Bartholomew and Hanifa are both very engaged in their communities. They want the community to succeed. Perhaps because they're a little older, they realise what can go wrong if others are being thoughtless. So instead of leaving it to chance, they try to make sure that they help others develop as leaders. Bartholomew wants to train Frankl, but for that to happen, someone has to learn to do what Frankl does. So Bartholomew arranges for Tori to get some training. In the same way, Hanifa is quick to help Billibonk learn. These are leadership development efforts. Hanifa and Bartholomew, they're helping others to provide stable leadership in the communities. That way there'll be more wisdom in the community, more wisdom available, and presumably less thoughtless activity. This becomes a second reinforcing loop. More wisdom means less thoughtless activity, fewer negative consequences or negative experiences, so the community gets stronger. More people are engaged, and more leadership development effort follows. Bartholomew and Hanifa both feel that strong communities are great, and that it's great to have lots of shared activity. The more you have, though, the more wisdom is needed to stop things from going wrong. And wisdom isn't going to happen by accident. Instead of leaving it to chance, they get busy training others. Well, what might you talk about with your child? When my children were young, there were times when I felt like I was saying no constantly because they kept coming up with one thoughtless idea after another. Perhaps the Dark Jungle gives you an opportunity to talk about how that happens and how you'd really like to say yes more often. That's true for most parents. There's an example in the last chapter. Tori just loves steering elephants and can imagine a game where she gets to do that. Frankl, though, can imagine the dangers involved. He has some non-negotiable standards when it comes to safety. But rather than just saying no to the idea, Frankl uses this as an opportunity to explain and to teach. So Tori gets to learn an important lesson, and she learns it without having to go through a nasty experience where she or her friends get hurt. You could ask your child something like, how can we have more conversations like they had? The chimps really needed more wisdom to deal with the bullying going on among the young chimps. Ali, who was the target of the bullying, felt that she was getting blamed for it, that it was somehow up to her to change. Then there was the temptation to think that they could threaten or punish their way to success, that maybe having a squad of elephants would sort out the badly behaving young chimps. It would be good to talk with your child about the bullying behaviour. What lessons were there in the story? What experiences have you and your child had that are similar? Bullying is a challenging problem that certainly calls on families and communities to exercise wisdom. In the Dark Jungle, Billibonk, Frankl, Tori and Hanifa all got involved in helping the chimps. And the help involved more than just reacting to what was obvious. To really help, they needed to see where problems came from, and then find things they could do to stop the problem arising, not just react once something had gone wrong. Of course, it helped that the whole chimp community got behind the effort. If they hadn't, what could Ali and her parents have done? Maybe that's something you could discuss. I hope the Dark Jungle gives you an opportunity to talk and learn together and explore how you can act wisely in the systems that you are a part of.